Greg. Thanks, Priscilla and the other organizers. They did a fabulous job. I think it was Mr. Dean who made the comment of all the candidate forums so far this election season. This is the most, by far, well-attended forum, and I think it speaks volumes about the civic literacy that we have here in Antrim County. My name is Dennis Lennox. I'm the elected Drain Commissioner of the road, about an hour and a half in Sheboygan County. I'm your endorsed Republican candidate for state representative on August 3rd. Quite simply, I'm running to be your next representative because I've waved goodbye to my generation, your children and grandchildren. We've lost one family every 12 minutes. 25,000 K-12 students who started the school year in Michigan in September left before it finished. That's simply unacceptable, and our leaders in Lansing, whether they're Democrats or Republicans, are part of the culture of corruption. We can't continue to elect the same old politicians that always run every election cycle with the same tired old ideas. You know, you hear the same thing election after election. If you took the dates out of the newspaper clippings, you wouldn't know what year it was. My campaign has always been, from when I started it last year, 20,000 doors ago, 21st century solutions to 21st century challenges. We need to start looking outside the box in Michigan because the tired old policies of the past aren't working. We're 50 out of 50, and it's not going to change until we elect a new generation of leaders in Lansing. As I said, I'm honored to have the endorsement of the Republican leadership. I'm honored to have the exclusive Pro-Life Federation of Michigan endorsement. My organization has never supported a so-called pro-life Democrat like Bart Stupak. I'm not Bart Stupak II. We need a representative who's going to stand up for our most important values and not compromise at the end like Right to Life always does. I also have the endorsement of Republicans for Environmental Protection and numerous local, county, and regional leaders. I believe this issue, though, is about one thing. It's about jobs. It's about ensuring a brighter future for our next generation. We need to get the focus of Lansing on keeping our children and grandchildren here. But government doesn't create jobs. You're going to hear that all campaign cycle, whether it's Rick Snyder or somebody running for county commissioner. They're going to brag about the number of jobs they're going to create. Politicians don't create jobs. What they do is create an environment for businesses to succeed or fail. We've got to make Michigan the most open for business state in the country, the most pro-innovation, the most pro-job creation state in the country. It's a shame that Mississippi makes more cars than Michigan does now. It's a shame that all of my friends from high school and college have left Michigan. My friends are in Atlanta, they're in Nashville, they're in Richmond, they're in Louisville, they're in the states and in their cities that have been doing things for years that Michigan should have been doing. So again, thank you very much for coming out. I do have a website, fixinglansing.com, and I look forward to answering a few questions this evening.
Thanks, Dennis. Go ahead and raise your hands if you have any verbal questions for Dennis. I've got one question here in the card while we're moving the mic over. Dennis, somebody wrote in and said, I'll read directly, it says, being 20-something, have you owned a home, ever been married, or have children?
Well, obviously I'm not married. I don't have a ring on my finger. I'm 26. It's kind of tough being a single guy right now in northern Michigan. There's not too many people your age out there. You know, I look at it from a perspective that we can't continue to elect the same type of politicians. I'm proud to live in the community that I've spent my entire life in. I'm proud to live in the community that my grandparents are buried in. I'm proud to live in the community that, in my opinion, is the greatest community in this constituency. No offense to the folks from Alden here, but I'm from Toppinabee, and I like to think Mullet Lake's a little nicer than Torch Lake. But you know, there's no qualifications. You know, when you look at people like John Engler, we have a strong record of leaders in this state from the 20-somethings, and we need to get those type of people back in Michigan.
If anybody'd like to ask questions about Lakes, you're welcome to. Dennis, as a brief secondary, the question did say at the end of it, it said, if not, meaning I guess if you're not married and have children, if not, where is your experience? So give me a moment.
Yeah, perfect. Well, I'm the only candidate that can get to work for you on day one. I'm the only one with legislative experience. I saw Senator Cropsey in the crowd earlier. I was proud to get his endorsement this evening. I used to work with Senator Cropsey in the legislature. I worked for the Senate Majority Leader. I've written bills. I've written constitutional amendments that have been overwhelmingly passed bipartisanly. I used to work for the President of the United States, President Bush. Worked for Congressman Dave Camp, whose district goes up to Traverse City. And then I was honored to work for Michigan's favorite son, Mitt Romney, when he ran for president. And I think our country, we can all agree, would be a lot better if Mitt Romney was elected.
We have some questions from the audience right now. Sir, you first. Go right ahead.
Well, Dennis, I have no problem with the young man. I think it's great, and I commend you for it. I don't think there's a thing wrong with that, being a young person growing up in northern Michigan. But I got one question I have to ask you. You've been complaining about signs throughout this election, and these fine people here have posted no signs on the township property tonight. And can you explain why you chose to be disrespectful to the voters and defy the request and put these signs up?
Well, you know, with respect, sir, I saw one of my opponents give you a piece of paper to write that question. I'm not going to answer plant questions in the audience. So next question, please, Greg.
Next question, that would be, let's see, I think the lady right there has her hand up. They're tied up over there with Mike. Dennis, if you wouldn't mind, could you hold the mic over to her? That way we'll just go ahead. That'll be a little faster then.
Same question, Dennis, for you that I gave to the others. How can we rein in EPA, DEQ, DNR, who think they are so big, they make the decisions and they put it in our yards and we don't have a choice? How do you do that?
Well, it would be very easy for me to stand up here and say I'm going to stop the deep injection well. Unfortunately, there isn't a single thing that I can do as your next representative to stop that, because we have something that's called a Bill of Attainder clause in the Constitution. You can't pass legislation that specifically applies to a single person, a single entity, or a single project. I think it's a travesty what happened. I think it's ridiculous that the Department of Natural Resources and Environment blocked the clean coal plant in Rogers City that would have created 6,000 jobs for northern Michigan and had an $8 billion impact on the northern Michigan economy, yet they're allowing something, the well, whose environmental consequences are much more significant than the clean coal plant would have ever done to our economy and our natural resources.
Next, I want to call on Samantha Tangle. She's with the Elk Rapids News. Samantha, would you come up and just use this mic a bit a little faster that way? And Samantha has a question for Dennis as well. So just you can scoot that mic down if you need to, or just turn it, what have you. There you go.
I just wanted to repose the question about the signs. You are the only person right now with signs out there. I'd like to know why you chose to leave them up, please.
Signs are against the rules.
I'm sorry, we didn't hear that.
Signs aren't against the rules of the forum.
Anybody else here right now would like a question for Dennis Lennox? Just a couple more minutes left. Okay, we have one in the back. Can we get the mic over there? Hold your hand up again so we know where to take the wireless to.
Thanks for your question, Mrs. Cole.
Mr. Lennox, and I'm not here to...
Yeah, I'll have to ask you to get real close to the mic.
Okay. I'm not here to grill you. I just have a question as a concerned voter. Do you, or have you ever owned your own home? And actually, it's a two-part question. Have you ever worked in the private sector? And if you have, or if you haven't, how would you know to deal with things in an average man's perspective?
I'll answer the second part first, and thanks again for your question, Mrs. Cole, and it's good to see your husband up here in front as well. For the second part of the question, I had the honor and privilege of working on the re-election campaign for our President of the United States in 2004. I had the honor and privilege of growing up in a small community that allowed me to go into professional hockey, where I spent 3.5 years traveling to 25 states across this country, 5 Canadian provinces and 3 European countries. And I had an immense opportunity for a kid from a small town in northern Michigan. I also run a public affairs consulting company with private and public sector clients across the country.
Any other final questions for Dennis Lennox tonight? Oh, yeah, that's right. There was a two-parter about whether you'd owned a home or not and how that could relate.
Well, unfortunately, we have an economic climate in this state that has chased my generation out of this state. We simply do not have a climate that allows young people to stay in this state and to prosper. The tax climate is onerous. You know, I've signed a pledge never to increase taxes. Somebody else had spoken about, the tax burden. It's local government as well. And being 26 years old, it's kind of tough to afford a place on your own with the way the tax climate is in my county, with the way the school districts continue to have millage after millage. And I'm not going to make any apologies for living with my family, like so many of our young people do.
Dennis, that'll be the last question just because